apparently the Islamic State is a bigger threat than the former Soviet Union was to us, the way everyone's talking. Go ahead.
No, I don't think the Islamic State per se. It's got about one-third of Syria, one-third of Iraq, and I don't think physically it's a great threat to the United States. It certainly is a problem for the Turks, who have done nothing about it, and it's a problem for Syria, which is fighting it, and it's a problem for Iraq. Any problem for us would come primarily, I think, from people in the Islamic State, Americans or Europeans or others who have passports and can get over here, but that's a manageable problem in my judgment. But let me say, Laura, if we are in there and bombing and fighting and we've taken some casualties and we're in another war, I don't think that's going to be a winner for the Republicans to say that, we're really going to see this through by then. Americans are, all of us, outraged over what happened with the beheading of those two fellas, and there's probably going to be some more outrages, but, we were outraged by 9/11 far more than we were by these, and after a while the Americans were saying, what are we doing still in there?
Yeah, I just think, look, when you have these beheadings and videos and all the online recruiting and Americans going over to fight, in the moment, I think you have a lot of Americans who are saying, let's get them, let's get them, let's get them. But I think as time goes on, and depending if there's an attack here, if there's not an attack here, I worry, Pat, that the Republicans are going to do what McCain did, frankly, in 2008, and make much of the campaign about foreign policy. And I don't think that that's a winner. I just don't. I think we have to restore the homeland. And that means shoring up our borders and our immigration process so people can't come here or can't be here if they're not interested in assimilating. That is the winner for Republicans.
I could not agree with you more. I remember McCain saying, "We are all Georgians now."
Oh God!
And I thought we're headed into South Asia. I don't get the map.
Yeah, we're all Georgians now. And like, wait a second, Atlanta?
Right. Look, we are a very emotional people, and naturally so. And if we see an outrage like that, we say, let's go get them. And I think the Americans, in terms of a swift response on something like that, Americans will support it. But to say that because these people are dreadful and they cut people's heads off, that we're going to go for a long war and go into a ground war, who's going to provide the ground troops? What I would say if I were President Obama is, look, we're going to punish the people that did this, but this is basically their war. If the Iraqis want Anbar province back, they're going to have to go fight for it. We're not going to get it for them a second time. They're going to have to get it, and we support the Kurds with weaponry, but they're going to provide the troops on the ground. You mentioned that book, The Greatest Comeback. One of the things Nixon said that I think a lot of people admire in retrospect was his famous Guam Doctrine or Nixon Doctrine, where he said, after Vietnam, we'll support our friends with the logistics and the weaponry and things like that, but they're going to provide the troops to fight for their own countries. We're not fighting their wars for them anymore. Look, we better realize the United States itself is in tremendous long-term danger, I think, and the bleeding border along our southern border, the mass movement of peoples all over the world into this country, the decomposition of the country socially and culturally and politically, all of these things, it seems to me, are far greater long-term threats to the United States than even those dreadful characters over there in Syria or Iraq beheading people. I don't think that's the threat. I think it's basically the country breaking up internally